Like any sport, boxing has its ups and downs, but it's different in a way that these ups and downs can be life and death. In other sports like basketball or football, you'd have a team to lose with. And along with that, you get a guaranteed shot at redemption, aka more games. But in boxing, all you get is one, maybe two chances if you get a rematch. And missing that first shot can break the hearts of your supporters and break your spirit. And to shed light on this, today we're going to talk about some of the most heartbreaking moments in boxing history. And keep in mind that this rabbit hole can go way deeper. I'm just giving some of the ones that affected me the most as a fan. First, we'll speak about Manny Pacquiao getting knocked out by Juan Manuel Marquez on December 8th, 2012. But before we get to the heartbreak, let's go back in time because these two got history. Marquez and Pacquiao have a history that spans over 4 fights, with each of the first 3 being riddled with controversy. It would all start when in the first fight,
we have a majority draw
after some questionable scoring, more specifically, how one judge scored what would normally be a 10-6 round, a 10-7 round, after Manny knocked down Marquez 3 times in 1 round. And it would continue over the next 2 fights, but each of them would go in Manny's favor this time, with some citing an agenda to push Pacquiao to the top of boxing due to his exciting style. But let's fast forward, to what was billed as the fight of the decade.
Protect yourself at all times, and what I say you must obey. Good luck, touch them up. Buena suerte.
First 2 rounds will be, your standard filling out rounds, and we get our first piece of action in round 3, where Marquez will catch Manny with a hard right after a feint that will send Pacquiao to the canvas. But Manny recovered quickly and was back to himself, breaking Marquez's nose in round 5. And we will see some more domination from Manny in round 6, up until Marquez would time Manny late in the round, dropping him and ending the fight instantly. And this knockout will spawn many of the earliest memes in the boxing community. But Manny bounced back from this, as we all know, to go on to do, bigger things and still be regarded as one of the top dogs of boxing. Next up, we got the one that, hit me the most, even though I was only like 3 months old when it happened, but still. And that is Roy Jones Jr. getting knocked out by Antonio Tarver. Tarver and Jones have a history going back by 1 fight, where in November of 2003, Jones would pick up a victory in a somewhat controversial majority decision, spawning the need for a rematch to decide whether that was a fluke or the real deal. In May of 2004, they would meet again in their highly anticipated match, and while the ref was giving them their instructions, Tarver would say the now famous line,
Got a question? You got any excuses tonight, Roy?
showing that these two really did not like each other. And in the first round, we would see some of what we would normally see from Roy Jones, looking a little bit stronger and less drained from his move back down from heavyweight. And as the first round came to a close, Jones would look to keep up the good work in the second, but Tarver would have other plans, catching Roy off guard with a left hand, dropping him and getting the knockout victory. And as we know now, things were far from over in Roy's career. But it just made me think of how much better Roy's career and legacy would look if he would have just took his time coming back from heavyweight, or if he would have just had, stayed at heavyweight to end his career. And on top of that, it makes you realize that Roy just loves to fight, man. And no matter what happened in the previous fight, he's going to get back in that ring. And while that's a good quality in fighters, younger years, Roy took it to the extreme, fighting well past his prime, almost like he still had something to prove. And number 3, we have Mike Tyson retiring in the ring after fighting Kevin McBride. During this time period, Tyson was in all kinds of debt to the IRS, and as we all know, the IRS do not play about their money. Tyson was far from in shape, and it, showed in the ring, barely being able to move around like we had gotten used to seeing from him due to years of injuries and abuse to his body in general. And after basically quitting in the 7th round, Tyson would concede that Father Time had finally caught up to him, and he just didn't have it in him anymore.
Anymore.
Does that mean we won't see you fight again?
Yeah, most likely I'm not going to fight again. I'm not going to disrespect the sport anymore by losing to this caliber of fighters.
After this, Tyson, who was still going through, financial troubles, would set up a group of exhibitions known as Mike Tyson's World Tour. But after 1 fight and a lackluster fan reception, the tour was canceled. But in the present day, Tyson has shown resiliency, becoming one of the most beloved people on the planet currently, even after whatever this was. Next, we got Larry Holmes versus Ali. Before this fight was scheduled, Ali would announce his retirement in June of 1979 after beating Leon Spinks for the WBA title. But in February of 1980, Ali would consider returning to the ring again, and in March he would agree to terms for a fight with John Tate, who was the current WBA champion at that time. But the fight would fall through after Tate was knocked out by Mike Weaver later that month. So Ali's next option was to then fight Weaver, but due to Bob Arum, these negotiations would also fall through. So at a press conference in April, Ali would announce that he was going to fight WBC champion Larry Holmes. The fight was then scheduled for October 2nd later that year, and before the fight, Ali would undergo an examination where it was found that he was having trouble doing things like touching his nose, but was still allowed to compete. And the fight itself was sad to watch, as Holmes just pretty much mauled Ali from the opening bell, with Ali clearly not being all the way there physically or mentally. This cringe fest would finally stop in the 15th round when, against Ali's wishes, his trainer Angelo Dundee would finally stop the fight, throwing in a towel. After this fight, Ali would undergo another examination, and he would admit that he was experiencing some tingling in his hands, among other things that are telltale signs of brain damage. After this fight, he would retire for good, and later in 1984, he would announce his Parkinson's diagnosis. It had always been, speculation on if boxing caused this diagnosis, and, but even if it didn't cause it, it definitely didn't help. And last, we're going to talk about Cotto versus Margarito 1. Cotto at this time was one of the top fighters in boxing's glamour division at the time, welterweight. Margarito was no slouch either, being a former champion himself. With this fight being billed as the battle, a firefight the likes of Castillo versus Corrales was anticipated, and it was delivered. But Margarito would slowly break Cotto down, as it seemed like every punch he landed affected Cotto tremendously. After a valiant effort, Cotto's corner would end his suffering in round 11, solidifying Margarito as a serious contender in the welterweight division. And the heartbreaking part about this is that it was found after Margarito's fight against Shane Mosley, which he lost, he was cheating.
That's fucking illegal.
It was found that he at least attempted
Fucking
to load his wraps with plaster and was then suspended for a year.
So I checked the pad, and when I checked the pad, it felt hard. So then the commissioner felt it. He said, that feels pretty hard. The commissioner flipped it open, and a block fell out of it.
Now you might be thinking, what's heartbreaking about that? Well, it's the fact that everybody knew Margarito had cheated against Cotto too, but he faced no sanctions for that. And Cotto forever had that stain and embarrassment on his career. But Cotto would get his justice when in 2011, at a cash weight of 153 pounds, Cotto would break Margarito's face on the way to a stoppage win, proving that that first fight shouldn't have counted. You know what I'm saying? It was a fluke. That wraps up today's video list thingy. And, like I always say, leave any thoughts, anything I might have missed in the comment section, and I'm out.